A quiet cafe in Manhattan. Marilyn Monroe sits by the window wearing a headscarf and no makeup. She's reading a book. Two women at the next table don't recognize her. One says to the other that Marilyn Monroe has nothing but looks. No brain, no real talent. Marilyn hears it, sets her book down, doesn't look at them, just listens. When she pays her bill and walks out, what she whispers to the cashier makes both women freeze. Before we continue with this story, please take just 10 seconds to subscribe and hit that like button. It helps us bring you more stories like this one. Now let's discover together what really happened in that cafe. New York City, Tuesday afternoon. Late autumn, gray sky. Cold but not freezing, streets wet from recent rain, people walk fast with heads down. A small cafe on a side street in the Upper West Side, family-owned, 20 years old. Simple awning, Moretti's. Inside 10 tables. Mismatched chairs. A counter with pastries. Cream walls yellowed with age. The afternoon crowd is thin. An old man reading newspaper. Two businessmen meeting quietly. Two women in their 40s at a center table. Well-dressed, carefully styled. They look like women who judge other women carefully. The cafe smells like espresso and bread. The owner's wife works behind the counter. 60. Gray hair in a bun. Flour on her apron. Efficient movements. Decades of experience. At 2:30 the door opens. A woman in a long dark coat. Headscarf tied under her chin. Dark glasses. No visible makeup. She moves quietly. Orders coffee and pastry. Soft voice. Takes her order to a table by the window. Removes her coat but keeps the scarf and glasses. Opens a book. This is Marilyn Monroe. Nobody knows. The disguise works completely. She's been coming here 3 weeks. Always afternoons. Always dressed this way. Always alone. The owner's wife has never recognized her. That's why Marilyn returns. One of the few places she can simply exist. The two women are talking. Voices carry. They're discussing a Marilyn Monroe movie. Not impressed. One says Monroe can't act. Just poses. All body. No brain. The other agrees enthusiastically. Monroe represents everything wrong with Hollywood. Beauty over talent. Marilyn hears this. She's 10 feet away. Sets her coffee down carefully. Doesn't turn. Keeps eyes on her book. But she's not reading. The words blur. The first woman continues. Says she read a Monroe interview. Says Monroe tried to sound intelligent but came across pretentious, probably didn't read the books she mentioned. The second woman laughs. Agrees, says Monroe is talentless. Manufactured. The studio created her. Nothing real underneath. Each word lands precisely. Small cuts. Dismissing. Reducing. Marilyn stays still. Hands on book. Breathing controlled. She looks calm. Inside she's experiencing something familiar. The pain of being reduced. Of hearing people discuss you like you're not human. The women continue. Talk about Monroe's marriages. Her relationships. Say she's probably not smart. Can't sustain relationships because there's no depth, just surface. Beauty that will fade. Marilyn closes her book. The sound is quiet but definite. She stares out the window. At people walking past. At the ordinary afternoon. She sits with these words. With this casual cruelty that doesn't even know it's cruel. She could stand, walk over. Remove her glasses. Reveal herself. Watch their horror. But she doesn't. Never does. What would it accomplish? They'd apologize but wouldn't change. Would just be more careful where they judge. The women keep talking. Move to other topics. Other actresses. Other celebrities. Having a pleasant afternoon. The satisfaction of feeling superior. Marilyn sits with it. This isn't new. This is her life. Since fame. Since strangers decided they knew her. Decided she was empty. Stupid. Nothing but appearance. She thinks about her book. Dostoevsky. The Brothers Karamazov. In Russian. She taught herself Russian to read literature without translation. 2 years with a tutor. Because she wanted direct access. She thinks about her sessions with Strasberg, the work on character, on emotional memory, the hours preparing roles, the analysis, the research, the commitment nobody sees. She thinks about her library. 300 books, philosophy, literature, poetry, books she's actually read, annotated, books that shaped her thinking. None of that matters to the women behind her. They've decided Evidence is irrelevant. Easier to dismiss than reconsider. Marilyn finishes her coffee, takes a small bite of the pastry, though she's not hungry. Just needs something to do with her hands. Some action to ground herself. To keep from dissolving into the sadness that's always there, always waiting. The sadness of being fundamentally misunderstood, of being famous and completely unknown, of being seen by millions and invisible to all of them. 30 minutes pass. The women finish their coffee, gather their things, stand to leave. They walk past Marilyn's table, don't glance at her, don't notice her, just another unremarkable woman. They head to the counter to pay. The owner's wife rings them up. They chat pleasantly about weather, about Thanksgiving coming. Marilyn waits, watches them through the window reflection, watches them laugh, button their coats, prepare to walk back out into the world, having no idea. No idea. They spent an hour discussing someone sitting 3 tables away, hearing everything, absorbing everything, carrying it. The women leave. The door closes. The cafe is quieter. Just Marilyn and the old man, and the businessmen finishing their meeting. Marilyn sits another moment. Processing, deciding, then stands. Puts on her coat, wraps her scarf more securely, picks up her book and bag. She walks to the counter. The owner's wife smiles. The warm smile for a regular customer. Someone polite. Someone who always tips well. Marilyn sets money on the counter. More than necessary. She always tips generously, quietly. Then Marilyn leans forward slightly, speaks softly, just loud enough for the owner's wife to hear. A few words. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just information. Quiet revelation. She tells the owner's wife who she is. Explains she's been coming here for weeks, because it's peaceful, because nobody recognizes her, because she can read and think without performance. Says the 2 women who just left spent 30 minutes discussing how stupid Marilyn Monroe is, how talentless, how empty. Says it happened 3 feet away. Says she heard every word, every judgment, every dismissal. The owner's wife's face changes. Color drains. Her mouth opens. She looks toward the door. The women are still visible through the window, walking, laughing, completely unaware of what they did, unaware they drove someone away, unaware of the cruelty they performed so casually. The owner's wife looks back at Marilyn, starts to speak, starts to apologize, for what exactly she's not sure, for not recognizing her, for not protecting her, for allowing cruelty in her establishment. But Marilyn shakes her head, small movement, says it's not her fault, says this happens everywhere, all the time, says she just wanted someone to know, wanted someone to understand the gap, the distance between what people think and who she actually is, between the image they judge and the person they ignore. The owner's wife stands there, holding Marilyn's money, speechless. Seeing this woman clearly, for the first time, seeing past the headscarf and glasses, seeing past her own assumptions, seeing a person who's been coming to her cafe for weeks, seeking sanctuary, and found judgment instead. Marilyn gives a small, sad smile. Thanks her for the coffee, says she probably won't come back. You can't come back now, the privacy is broken. The sanctuary is contaminated, one more place where she can't simply exist. One more space closed to her, she turns to leave. The owner's wife calls after her softly, asks her to wait. Marilyn pauses. The owner's wife comes around the counter, says she's sorry, says she wishes she'd known, says Marilyn is welcome here. Always. Says she'll make sure it's safe, make sure it stays quiet. Please come back. Marilyn looks at this woman, sees genuine distress, genuine care, says thank you, but they both know it won't be the same. Can't be the same. The knowledge changes everything. Even kindness contains recognition now. Even welcome contains awareness. The anonymity is gone. The escape is closed. Marilyn leaves, walks out into the gray afternoon, pulls her coat tighter, heads down the street in the opposite direction from the 2 women, disappears into the crowd of people hurrying through the cold. Just another figure in a dark coat. Invisible again, but in a different way. Not peaceful anonymity. Lonely invisibility. Inside the cafe, the owner's wife stands behind her counter, staring at the door, processing what just happened, what she just learned. She thinks about the 2 women, thinks about calling after them, telling them, making them understand what they did, making them face their cruelty. But what would that accomplish? They'd be embarrassed, apologetic, but the damage is done. The words were said. Marilyn heard them, carried them away, added them to the collection. One more afternoon, one more place, one more reminder that fame means being judged by everyone and understood by no one. The owner's wife thinks about Marilyn coming here for weeks, always quiet, always polite, always alone with a book, seeking something simple, something everyone deserves. Privacy, peace, the ability to exist without performance. And she couldn't even have that. Couldn't even sit in a cafe without hearing strangers discuss how worthless she is. She thinks about the books Marilyn always brought. Serious books, heavy books, literature, philosophy, things you don't read casually. Things that require attention, thought, engagement. She'd assumed they were props, part of some act, making herself look intellectual. Now she realizes those were real, those were genuine. Marilyn Monroe was actually reading Dostoevsky in a cafe, actually thinking, actually living an interior life that nobody credits her with having. The old man with the newspaper stands to leave, pays his bill, says goodbye, doesn't know anything happened, doesn't know Marilyn Monroe was just here, doesn't know two women spent their afternoon being casually cruel to someone they'll never meet. Just another Tuesday, just another afternoon. Just life continuing its normal patterns while small devastations happen in the spaces between. The owner's wife thinks about this for weeks, thinks about what she witnessed, what she learned. She tells her husband that night, tells him Marilyn Monroe was coming to their cafe, was seeking refuge, was driven away by cruelty she wasn't even meant to hear. Her husband asks if she told the women. She says no. He asks why not. She says because what difference would it make? They'd apologize to save face, but they wouldn't actually change, wouldn't actually examine their need to judge, to reduce, to find comfort in feeling superior to strangers. Word spread slowly through the neighborhood, not headlines, not news stories, just quiet talk. The cafe owner's wife mentions it to a few regular customers, says Marilyn Monroe used to come here, used to sit quietly by the window, reading, escaping. Until two women who didn't recognize her discussed how stupid she was, how talentless. 3 feet away from her, driving her away from one of the few places she felt safe. Some people don't believe it, say the owner's wife made it up, seeking attention, creating drama, but people who know her believe it, know she's not the type to lie, not the type to seek attention. She's telling the truth because it bothers her, because she witnessed something that revealed a cruelty she hadn't fully understood before. The two women never find out, never learn they spent an afternoon discussing Marilyn Monroe while Marilyn Monroe sat close enough to touch, never know they were the reason she stopped coming to that cafe, never face what their casual judgment cost. They continue their lives, continue having coffee with friends, continue discussing celebrities they feel entitled to judge, continue never knowing the harm they cause, continue comfortable in their certainty. Marilyn never goes back to that cafe. Finds another place eventually, farther from her apartment, less convenient, but new, unknown, where nobody has had time to recognize her yet, where she can sit for a few weeks before the privacy breaks again, before she has to move on. Before the cycle repeats, she carries that afternoon with her, adds it to the others. The accumulation of moments when she learned again that people have decided who she is, have decided she's empty. Decoration, surface without depth, and no evidence will change their minds. No demonstration of intelligence or talent or interiority will matter. The narrative is fixed. The judgment is final. This is what fame cost her, not privacy in the normal sense. Everyone knows that famous people sacrifice privacy, but this particular kind of invisibility. Being seen constantly, but never actually perceived. Being discussed endlessly, but never actually known. Being famous for an image that obscures the person, being successful at becoming exactly what people want while losing any chance of being recognized as human. Years later, people who study Marilyn Monroe will find photographs of her reading on sets. In dressing rooms, at home, books in her hands, serious books, they'll find letters she wrote, thoughtful letters, analytical letters, letters that demonstrate real intelligence, real education. Real engagement with ideas. They'll interview people who knew her, who'll describe her curiosity, her reading habits, her conversations about philosophy and literature and psychology, but by then it won't matter. By then she'll be gone. The image will remain. The caricature, the dumb blonde, the sex symbol, the tragic figure who was beautiful and nothing else. The lesson people will take from her life won't be about the cost of fame, won't be about the violence of being reduced to image, won't be about the cruelty of judgment without understanding. The lesson people take will be simpler, more comfortable. Fame and beauty aren't enough. She had everything and was still unhappy. Therefore, beauty is meaningless. Fame is meaningless. No examination of how people treated her, no questioning of their own participation in her reduction, just the comfortable conclusion that having what she had wasn't enough. Her fault, her failure, her weakness. That afternoon in the cafe was just one afternoon, one conversation. Two women who never knew they were overheard. One woman who couldn't even have coffee in peace, couldn't even read a book without being reminded that people have decided she's worthless, decided she's stupid, decided she's nothing but surface. Just one afternoon, but multiplied by thousands, by every interaction, every interview, every encounter, the accumulated weight of constant judgment, constant reduction, constant dismissal, until the person underneath disappears, until only the image remains, until even she forgets where Marilyn Monroe ends and Norma Jean begins. That's what those women took from her that afternoon. Not privacy, not peace, not safety. Those were already fragile, already temporary. What they took was hope. Hope that somewhere she could exist without judgment, without performance, without being reduced. Hope that somewhere people would simply let her be, and they never knew, never had to know, never faced what they did, went home to their comfortable lives, their certain judgments, their simple understandings of complex things, their conviction that they're kind people, good people, people who would never be cruel. But cruelty doesn't require intention, doesn't require malice. Sometimes it's just two women having coffee, discussing a stranger, deciding she's worthless, never knowing she's listening, never knowing the cost, never having to know. Think about the judgments you make about people you'll never meet. Think about the conversations you have about strangers. Think about how confident you are in your assessments, how certain, how simple. Marilyn Monroe sat in a cafe and heard herself dismissed, not by enemies, by ordinary people having an ordinary conversation. People who thought their judgment was harmless because she'd never hear it, never know, never be affected. She heard it. She knew. She was affected. If this story changed how you think about casual judgment, subscribe for more stories about the cost of being misunderstood. And ask yourself, what do you say about people when you think they're not listening?